If not one of the two friends you spoke to this morning at the coffee shop had ever considered leaving the United States, would you be surprised? The statistics show that half of the country has seriously considered it, even though you may think they are only saying it for fun. My husband and I will be leaving overseas without a job in 44 days, having left behind a six-figure income. But in 2015, my country kind of disappeared, and now I don't recognize it. In addition, this problem is affecting more than just those who are struggling. Six-figure families are packing up, bringing their pets with them, and flying straight to Portugal, Spain, or Italy. They don't want to get stuck with the astronomical medical and consumer expenses in the United States. The American dream is turning increasingly into an empty shopping basket. You work, but you get nothing. Why, then, are millions of Americans following this path? What do they see that we have not seen yet? We're going to give you the top 5 reasons why life in America is no longer desirable in this video. This is what you have to listen to today, so keep your eyes glued to this screen. Let's get started. Have you ever seen that the bills become thicker the more you do, but the grocery basket you bring home becomes thinner and thinner? Millions of Americans struggle with this conundrum each morning and each time they go to the grocery store. Live less, work more, and earn more. Let's try to paint a simple market trip picture. You buy a gallon of milk, a package of ground meat, and a few eggs. It was $20 at one point. Now, it is $35. The number isn't quite as shocking as the news on the financial report, but when a family of 4 does the math during the course of the year, it is a decrease in holiday time, funds for the children's education, and even your own leisure time. When you consider your retirement fund, the interest rate is not enough to offset the increasing cost of prescription drugs. The news that even Seattle's 6-figure earners are leaving is shocking. To catch their breath, they sold their house, took the 2 dogs, and left for Italy immediately. When the cost of living turns into a storm that blows away the joys of day-to-day living, money won't do to escape the sense of choking. Why is this so draining? First, there is the so-called emotional tax of urban living. Rent, insurance, and medical expenses are all paid by you. But you get worry, traffic congestion, and bad news in return for safety or peace of mind. Folks work harder, but they cannot buy any more happiness as they watch their costs pile up. Second, lifestyle inflation gets an insidious impact. You become caught in a maelstrom within the city. You need a brand new car, an upscale home, good private schools for your children, and a ritzy vacation. Middle-class families need to borrow money, but they console themselves by asserting that the rest of the world is doing the same. The illusion has been dispelled, though, by the price shock of today. Fixed costs are pervasive in every nook and corner, and there is no respite to restrain. This implies that middle-class households would have to go without entertainment, holidays, and even dinner with the children. Each time a retired person goes to see his doctor, buys medicines, or saves on power and water, it poses a challenge. Workers only have the energy to sleep upon arriving home after working the 3rd shift of the week. This is my last night driving in the US before relocating to Spain with my family, a man openly stated. My hometown is not something I loathe. I just loathe bills. Doesn't this sound familiar? Because you might be thinking the same thing as your neighbor. Also, keep in mind how a pound of meat is now just as expensive as a pair of cheap sneakers if you need a run-of-the-mill picture to look at. The meat will not last you 6 months, which is the only difference. The first reason for our countdown is that the American dream is threatened by increasing living costs, so the shopping cart becomes a dismal reality. But remember that an expensive shopping cart will not take one to the airport. A hollow pocketbook is often the result of a tired heart. At this juncture, we must take the following explanation into account. We were actually broke, pursuing the definition of success society promised, a Seattle couple confessed. That's not an isolated complaint. That's the verdict for a lifestyle that's brought an entire generation to being nothing more than passengers on a perpetual conveyor belt. The pace of urban life in America now seems like a continual struggle. You're already stuck in traffic at 6 a.m., grasping your coffee cup like a lifeline. Deadlines pile up on top of each other in the office. The children were waiting to be driven to more tutoring, and the bills waited on the table when they arrived home. You spend your whole day playing the roles of the family's reluctant driver, accountant, and physician, rather than truly living. Burnout is the result. Every person has a disease not recorded on official medical documents. Let us hear it from an American who moved to Costa Rica. I had to be on anxiety medication in America. I no longer need it here. I wasn't cut out to live in an American city, it turns out. How ironic. A trillion-dollar healthcare system isn't even sure how to properly prescribe migration as a treatment for mental illness. Why is burnout so prevalent? It is first seen in the delayed reward model. We are given a lot of work, and you will get the dividends someday, but nothing like that ever occurred. It is like a carrot dangled in front of you. You never get to it, but the more you run, the more tired you get. They also don't have a cohesive infrastructure. Neighbors in most cities know nothing about each other's names. Social connections are summarized into several social networking status updates, and the society is fragile. Although in the midst of crowds, Americans feel lonely. Moreover, you are overwhelmed with information about crimes, political conflicts, natural catastrophes, and crises when you switch on the TV and surf social media. It drains your brain power along with giving you information. Interestingly, burnout is not socially classed. Each day is a logistical challenge for middle-class households.
Who picks up the kids? Who pays? Who takes care of healthcare? Instead of enjoying their golden years, retirees have to worry about medical bills as if they were a budget puzzle. And stress and insomnia become full-time colleagues for workers. Meanwhile, a tale was spun in a country region of Portugal. My neighbor and I went potato digging this morning. I feel like the luckiest person in the world because it's so peaceful. It's a simple story, but it touches on a primal desire to breathe, to live slowly, and to be fully human. Time is money in America. Out there on the farm, though, time is a comestible sweet potato, and it is this irony that is driving more and more individuals to want to leave. Certain times, exiting a culture isn't betrayal, but the sole means of staying alive when you're physically and emotionally exhausted. But wait, burnout is just the tip of the iceberg. Losing hope in one's own nation is something that makes individuals depressed even sooner. I don't want to spend the remainder of my life this way, a woman in her late 50s said. In 2015, my America disappeared. It sounds like a sad complaint at first. In reality, though, it is the cry of millions of individuals who feel their country is evolving so swiftly that they can no longer recognize the neighborhood in which they grew up. You can certainly feel the tense atmosphere in large cities. A backyard barbecue can soon turn into a heated political debate, even when it was begun over merely the smell of meat and laughter. Suspicious glances replaced smiles at the morning coffee shop. Which team do you root for? The country that previously prided itself on its diversity now seems to be polarized. Such is the cruel reality. Some 50% of Americans have considered emigration. Many tend to admit that they are in fear of being too behind, and the door will be slammed shut before millions want to leave. What is going on? It may be called an unanticipated tax. Would we be better off elsewhere if the future became questionable based on social occurrences and policy? It is not all about money. It is about believing in stability. We do a lot, pay taxes in full, but have little authority and high risks, is the general sentiment among middle-class individuals. Retirees are worried. There are only a few decades remaining for me. Am I supposed to spend the rest of my life in suspense? Most workers are even willing to change their professions in an effort to move there. A New York woman spoke out her fear candidly. I don't want to run in terror. I don't want to wait in line at the airport with a million other individuals. Many viewers' sentiments are captured in the sentence, an anxiety that they would be stranded in a country that is growing increasingly unstable if they don't act soon. Let's try to imagine it by employing a familiar picture. Belief is like an electrical system in a typical house. You never know it exists when it is working fine. But you won't realize how valuable it is until you experience one power failure in the midst of winter. Moreover, you will consider buying a backup power generator immediately if there are regular power failures. too many Americans decided to prepare passports and consider leaving so that they could get a backup generator. Essentially, trust is an invisible public infrastructure. Everybody is forced to lug around an improvised bridge when the infrastructure collapses. Because of this, more and more Americans are carefully planning their exit strategy, not because they hate their country, but because they aren't sure that they will be able to trust it anymore in the future. And few individuals wish to face this reality. Not only is America losing its economic appeal, but it is also losing the mental stability that previously made people feel proud and at ease. That's the question, though. Why? How, therefore, can Americans depart? Technology, remote work, and a quiet push are the solutions. It is now possible to travel due to the new passport, which was previously for the rich or retirees. The new passport is the laptop that enables Americans to leave. It sounds like a joke, but the American middle class is largely employing remote work as an invisible visa. Let's look at the numbers. The number of Americans buying houses in Spain increased by 57% just in the first quarter of 2025. Not the very rich, that is, those who telecommute, get paid in USD, and spend in euros or cheaper local currencies. From the economic perspective, simply by having a stable Wi-Fi connection, they both enhance the quality of life and reduce pressure on costs. And not just in Spain. Several real-life tales are beginning to emerge. A young Michigan family of 4 and their dog moved to the Netherlands after 14 years of work. To begin anew, a woman traveled directly to Mexico in a small U-Haul filled with dogs and kittens. In a bid to breathe a little easier, the Seattle pair dared to dream and gave up their 6-figure careers to move to Italy. What is changing? Infrastructure that is digital. Previously, moving out of the U.S. was retiring or getting fired. No, you can send reports to your New York corporation from a Lisbon coffee shop with only a laptop and a bank account. The formula for twofold leverage in the modern era is to earn in dollars and pay in cheaper local currency. Flexible visa. With merely a passport and without the complex financial paperwork, Americans are allowed to enter Albania for 1 year. Before opting for a long-term move, middle-class households may see this as an entrance to live beyond the United States. Spread your geographic risk. Don't put all of your eggs into one basket, similar to investing. Provisioning your life in multiple places is a good foresight if you think that America is not safe or secure anymore. It is clear how it influences daily existence. It's a chance for middle-class families to reside in an area where neighbors learn each other's names, send their children to European public schools for less money, and walk to the forest or the sea in the late afternoon. For seniors, it's a comfortable home in a sunny place with good, readily available medical treatment without having to sell all their belongings to fund medical care. This is an independent contractor's lifestyle portfolio.
A simple existence with minimal outgoings and a number of small sources of income. The story of a country-dwelling Portuguese citizen says it all. I dug potatoes with the neighbors this morning. I am as lucky as the next man. It's a simple image, but says a great deal. I do not have to be very wealthy. I only require a peaceful life and actual neighbors with whom to share spuds. The popular American dictum is, work hard, play later. Yet increasingly, Americans are testing a new model owing to digital infrastructure and telecommuting. Live now, work less. But remember, immigration is no party. A challenging mental test came after the postage stamp and the plane ticket, because changing the sky does not necessarily change your mood. We move on to the next truth. Not in the brochure. Bureaucracy, emotional shocks, and loneliness. It is a popular belief that changing the sky would make your luck better. In reality, however, airline tickets do not give you the meaning of life. They simply sell you a place. This is the final and most self-evident reason why many people are forced to realize that it's not so easy as they had thought after leaving the United States. As a woman who lived for 18 months abroad said, living here is often terrible, solitary, and exhausting. My daughter flew back to me recently. I was miserably missing her, but I don't have a single close friend to bank upon over here. The rosy-colored view that flying TikTok videos often present is taken away in this harsh admission. What does the pretty brochure really stand for? Visas, work visas, temporary stay visas, and heaps of paperwork. By the time you can catch your breath on fresh air, every sheet of paper is a tiny boss that exhausts you. Cultural and language barriers sometimes get in the way. You can learn a few greetings here and there, but it is hard work to fully understand what people are saying in a parent-teacher meeting or at the local hospital. Unstable income. For others, getting things done online is adequate. But it only takes one faltering Wi-Fi connection or one American customer cancelling their subscription for your whole family to live in fear of money. The web of support is gone. In America, you also have old neighbours, university friends, and a familiar doctor. You have to begin again in a foreign land. Each day is a test of endurance for middle-class families. Parents have to familiarise themselves with all the rules again, and children have to make new friends. Most recreational hours do not always translate into bliss for seniors. It is just extended emptiness without a sense of community. And making a bank account, taking an apartment on rent, and applying for health insurance can all turn out to be nightmares for the workforce. Suppose you know at least the banking, insurance, and taxation systems of the United States. Elsewhere, that game becomes an entirely different chessboard. The rules are constantly shifting, but the pieces are new. So, why are so many people determined to leave despite the obstacles? Because there are times when it's more costly to remain than to begin anew. Rather than subjecting themselves to the insecurity of an environment they know, they chose to subject themselves to the loneliness of a peaceful one. Begin preparing well in advance if you're going to depart, one recommended very pragmatically. Getting a passport, doing financial calculations, figuring out who will care for the pets, and dealing with the house. Most importantly, be sure your line in the sand is clearly drawn. When are you going to say enough is enough? The real harsh truth is, relocating to another country does not make you who you are not. It only offers you a new challenge. Yet, most Americans continue to find that struggle easier to endure than rising every morning in a foreign country. An empty shopping cart can command a high price in America. You pay in loneliness somewhere else. Which price you choose is the question. As you can observe, the image became clear after you counted down the 5 reasons. Burnout, social polarization, reducing living costs, the rise of remote labor, and finally, the human breaking point. All of them combined brought a wave that was both quiet but powerful. The American dream is being left behind by Americans in the same nation that gave rise to it. The vacant shopping cart is perhaps the most powerful symbol, because it symbolizes a dream that once held promise of abundance, wealth, and tranquility, but has in the meantime lost its strength, not simply the lack of food for dinner. Americans are finally catching on to the fact that maybe that dream is no longer sitting in family dinners at the local grocery store, but instead glows in peaceful mornings in Costa Rica, tiny apartments along the Spanish coast, or Portuguese fields. But I want to emphasize this too. It's not always possible to leave. It's isolating. There is procedure. There is uncertainty. Due to this, each of you must establish your own boundaries when you know it's time to go to the next level. You are the only person who can set that line. I now want to know what you believe. For you, what is the final limit? When healthcare costs exceed retirement funds, or when arguments hijack a family picnic rather than happiness, is it time? Or when you realize you're existing too little and working too much? In the space below for comments, please share your thoughts. I believe other audiences would be able to relate to your story, and I would love to read it. We will be having our open discussion on the American economy, society, and lifestyle here, so if this video strikes a chord with you, please subscribe to the channel, share it with your friends, and like it. No hyperbole or extremism, just the facts in a friendly and uncomplicated way. This is not immigration or legal advice. All I give is simply for review and to encourage thought. You have to always make your ultimate decision, whether to remain or leave, based upon your own needs, situation, and studies. Perhaps there is still hope for the American dream. It just comes in a different package, and each of us must ask ourselves, do you still wish to pursue that dream here or somewhere?